A week ago, after 20 years of exclusion, America rediscovered China. Most of the people covering the president's trip did not speak Chinese, but they did manage to give us their own impressions of China. Their own experience, tastes, education had conditioned those reporters to respond to China in a certain way. Their main impression was that China had uplifted itself in 20 years, but through the massive regimentation of hundreds of millions of minds. Well, we wondered how a Chinese television reporter, given his own background, conditioning, etc., would respond to the discovery of America. I tried to place myself in his shoes. So imagine with us for a moment that you too are Chinese. I am your people's television reporter, and this is my first report from America.
It has been 200 years since the American Revolution began. As we all know, it was not a revolution of peasants and workers, but a revolution of the merchant class. For the most part, the revolution has succeeded. America will not return to its pre-revolutionary condition. It is here to stay. And while there have been excesses, the lot of the ordinary individual, the ordinary American, has been vastly improved in the last 200 years. But coming to America's biggest city, New York, is like coming to another planet.
The first thing you notice is the regimentation of all classes. Each morning, they pour by the hundreds of thousands down into the honeycomb of tunnels beneath the city. Like so many ants, the citizens of New York scurry to their jobs. These subways, incidentally, are part of the air-raid shelter system that the ruling classes have installed to convince the common people of the threat of the People's Liberation Movement. Above ground in New York, as in most American cities, the merchant class's control is even more evident. People who live outside the city cannot enter it without paying money. And the people who live in the city are prisoners. They cannot leave the city unless they too pay for the necessary permission. Permission today comes in the form of an automated green light. A visitor to America cannot help but be struck by some of the fruits of the revolution. The World Trade Center, for example, is 1,350 feet high, or 16,200 inches. It took 7 years to build and is, for the most part, empty. But it is the tallest building in the world. Sheer size in America is its own reward. But that is the showpiece, New York. The workers do not live in the city center, but in these workers' apartments. Mile upon mile, each one the same. The predominant color is gray. Gray sky, gray buildings, gray people. Our interpreters discouraged us from talking to the common people. They insisted on taking us to the main square of the city, Times Square. This is where the citizens are encouraged to spend their leisure time. Young girls are drafted from the farm to join entertainment brigades. They work in these theaters or on film, and some of them work independently on the streets after dark. But nervous officials cautioned us to remain in our hotels at night behind locked doors. Even in their allotted leisure time, Americans are regimented. This is People's Cinema #1. Our hosts were embarrassed when we questioned them about the long lines everywhere. The film these workers are being encouraged to see is about rape, murder, a society ruled by violence. It is described by American intellectuals as brilliant. Wherever you go in America, you cannot escape the exhortations of the chairman, of thousands of chairmen who keep America free and great, or so the people are told. There is also a campaign to reduce the population of the world's fourth most populous country. People are encouraged to leave for just about anywhere. But the strongest impression given a visitor from so many thousands of miles away is of the police here. Police everywhere. Police on foot. Police at every intersection. You cannot turn a corner in New York without seeing an armed policeman of one kind or another. The police are said to be the best organized in the world, with one half working for the state and the other half, according to the American press, for the criminals. That is American democracy. Americans are all very conscious of their health. State medicine as we know it does not exist. But almost all Americans practice folk medicine. There is hardly a street corner in the country without a folk medicine shop. All Americans, regardless of age, are taking one kind of drug or another. Every morning at first light, workers are ordered into the streets. In New York, into the Central Park. Regardless of age, they must fulfill their exercise norm. You find this kind of thing throughout America. A healthy mind in a healthy body is the slogan they use. There are slogans for everything in this controlled society of 200 million people, but most of them are negative signs and slogans, designed to keep the people within the pattern set by the state. We are used to controls, but this has staggered us all. This is total organization. This is what totalitarianism is, the total control of a whole population, of hundreds of millions of people. And here you see it in operation. They simply send out the word through this tremendous organization they have throughout the country, and even the children unquestioningly respond. The merchant class and the advertising class control most of America. In spite of this, some old traditions have survived. Americans are particular about their food, and these small individual restaurants have managed to fend off the conglomerates. Conglomerates are communes for the rich. Americans like to eat quickly and standing up. It is part of an ancient ritual. The food is called the hot dog. All of which raises another failure of the American Revolution. In China, in less than 20 years, the revolution managed to eradicate the dog from everything but the dinner plate. In America, all the campaigns, the millions spent to curb dogs, have failed. Dogs of all shapes and sizes, of all breeds and colors, have survived. It is a noble gesture of defiance by the people of America to the regime that has tried to control their every thought and act for centuries now. The state is everywhere, watching. America has channeled its technological energies into watching its every move. The state sociologists call it communications. But no citizen can spend even a moment in a quiet, private reverie without being watched by another citizen. These people, as you see, all have the same dour expressions on their faces. When I commented on this, Americans told me that New York people were different from other Americans, that they were arrogant and regarded their city as the Middle Kingdom, surrounded by barbarians. It is indeed a confusing place.
There are all kinds of anomalies about this country that are difficult for a stranger to understand. For instance, here in the Central Park, you see all of these horse-drawn taxis, and you see them parked in front of the fashionable hotels around here. Well, why is it in America that only the very rich can afford to go by horse? The poor people must go by bus or by taxi or even by their own car. In most other countries, we are trying to get rid of the horse and other animals as the primary means of transportation. In America, the horse is the fashionable way to travel.
Another curious American habit, marching. Even on their impossibly complicated festival days, as this one, which is the celebration of the Shamrock, they respond to the national call for mass demonstration. They go about their business as if they were competing with one another. Because in this system, it is not just what you do, but how you look, what they call your charisma, that goes down in your book. That's been going on for 200 years, and this is the result of it. Whether we can condone this system or not, we must learn to live with it.